They told me I was too old for long flights, too old for hotel stares, too old to keep up with the itinerary. That's how my son David phrased it, carefully, as if he was explaining something to a child. His sister Rachel didn't even bother with careful words. She just shrugged and said, "Mom, it'll be easier if you stay home. You can watch the house. Watch the house, like a sitter, not their mother." I sat at the edge of the dining table that evening, the desert sun sliding down over Phoenix, painting the walls with warm orange. David was leaning against the counter, scrolling his phone between sentences, and Rachel had her laptop open, already checking into her hotel in Rome. I listened as they laughed together about what they'd eat in Italy, which sights they'd see, how the gelato was better than anything in America. Not once did they look at me. David finally set his phone down and added, "You'll just have to water the plants and feed Oliver. And please double lock the doors at night. Phoenix has been getting worse for break-ins." I nodded silently, because that's what I've learned to do over the years. When you're a single mother, raising 2 children by yourself, you become the dependable one. The one who doesn't argue, who doesn't make things harder, who absorbs the blows quietly and still shows up when the world has already decided you don't matter much anymore. But inside, something cracked. After they left, driving off in David's shiny SUV, talking about pasta and art museums, I stood in the doorway and watched the taillights fade. My hand lifted to wave, but no one saw it. I didn't cry, not right then. I just closed the door, fed the cat, and tried to breathe. That was when I noticed the envelope. It was resting inside my mailbox, cream-colored, thick paper with the name of a local travel agency printed in dark ink. I pulled it out, confused, and opened it with trembling fingers. Inside were 4 plane tickets: Phoenix to Rome, Rome to Florence, return flight 2 weeks later. Neatly printed names: David Carter, Rachel Carter, Rachel's fiancé, Mark, and their cousin Megan. My name wasn't there. Of course it wasn't. I held the tickets in both hands, staring at them until the words blurred. The paper felt heavier than it should have, like it carried more than flights and seat numbers. It carried the truth that after decades of raising them, after years of being both mother and father, after working double shifts so they could attend good schools, they had written me out of their story without hesitation. The house was quiet, too quiet. I placed the tickets on the kitchen table and turned on the kettle. That's what you do when your heart clenches in your chest. You make tea and wait for your hands to stop shaking. But my hands didn't stop. I sat there for a long time, the steam from the kettle rising into the quiet. The envelope still open on the table. 4 tickets, 4 names, not mine. I thought of all the years before this moment, when David was 6 and broke his arm falling from the monkey bars. It was me who carried him to the ER because his father was already gone. When Rachel wanted piano lessons, I skipped new shoes for myself so we could afford the monthly fee. Every vacation, every birthday, every holiday, I was the one who made sure there was something under the tree, food on the table, tickets to the field trips. And yet here I was, reduced to watering plants while they ate spaghetti on cobblestone streets. My hands trembled as I reached for the phone. I didn't plan it. I didn't even think it through. I just dialed the number printed at the bottom of the tickets. A young woman answered with a cheerful voice. "Thank you for calling Valley Travel. How can I help you?" I cleared my throat. "I'd like to cancel some tickets." There was a pause. "Of course, ma'am. May I ask the reason?" "What's that?" "No," I said softly. "Just cancel them." Her voice faltered a little. "All right, give me a moment." I held the receiver tightly, listening to the clacking of her keyboard. My heart beat so loudly, I thought she might hear it. Then she came back. "Done. The reservation has been canceled. You'll receive confirmation by email." "Thank you," I whispered, then hung up before she could say anything else. The house seemed even quieter than before. Oliver the cat jumped onto the counter and stared at me like he knew I'd done something reckless. I stroked his fur and whispered, "They'll figure it out." I should have felt guilty. Instead, I felt a strange calm. I opened the drawer by the fridge where I kept my important documents. My passport was still there, its navy cover, a little faded, but valid for 3 more years. My savings account had a little over $14,000. A few bonds I never touched, worth a few thousand more. No debts, no one depending on me anymore. Not really. I turned the tickets face down on the table and opened my laptop. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a long time. Before typing one word into the search bar, flights, where would I go? Paris, London, maybe Rome itself, just to watch their faces if they ran into me. But my heart whispered something else, a place I had dreamed of when I was young, and still believed I would travel the world. Lisbon, a city by the sea, warm light, music in the streets. I booked one seat, window side, departure in 3 days. Then I picked up the kettle and poured my tea, smiling faintly as the steam curled upward. For once, I wasn't staying behind. The airport in Phoenix felt like a different world to me. I hadn't flown in almost 30 years, not since a business trip back when I was still working full-time as a nurse. My children had flown dozens of times without me, but for me, the TSA lines, the boarding gates, the endless voices over the loudspeakers, it all felt foreign and alive. I clutched my boarding pass like it was a shield. When the gate agent scanned it and said, "Enjoy your flight, ma'am," I didn't answer. I just nodded and walked down the jet bridge. My legs felt heavier than they should, but my heart felt like it had been unlocked. The plane hummed with a restless energy. Young couples argued over luggage. Families wrangled their kids. Business travelers tapped on laptops. I sat by the window, hands folded tightly in my lap, staring out at the wing, as if I might change my mind. But once we lifted off, Phoenix disappeared beneath a blanket of desert and sky. For the first time in decades, I wasn't on the ground waiting for someone else to live their life. I was moving, really moving, towards something that was mine alone. The flight was long, and I dozed in and out, the kind of shallow sleep that is more survival than rest. But when the captain announced we were approaching Lisbon, I pressed my forehead against the cool glass and saw the ocean stretching out beneath us, endless and blue. When I stepped off the plane, the air felt different, heavier, salted with the sea, tinged with something floral I couldn't name. I made my way to a modest pension in the Alfama district, a whitewashed building with blue tiles and balconies lined with potted plants. The woman at the desk spoke English and called me Madam Carter, like the words still mattered. My room was simple, a narrow bed, a wooden chair, a window that opened out onto a tangle of rooftops. I set my suitcase against the wall and sat on the bed, staring at the tiled floor. I wasn't sad, I wasn't scared. I was simply stunned that I had done it. That evening, I wandered the neighborhood. The streets were narrow, cobblestones uneven under my shoes. A bakery filled the air with the smell of fresh bread. At a small cafe, I ordered olives and coffee. The waiter didn't rush me, didn't glance at his watch. I ate slowly, savoring every bite. No one here knew I was too old. No one told me to stay home. I was just a woman at a table, alive in a city that didn't owe me anything. On the way back, I bought a postcard. Back in my room, I wrote one short note. "Dear Sophie, guess where I am? Lisbon. The sea is bluer than you can imagine. Love, Grandma." I didn't write to David. I didn't write to Rachel. They didn't need to know. For the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't waiting on anyone's permission. The next morning, I went down to the small dining room of the pension. It smelled of coffee and butter, with light spilling in through tall windows that looked onto the crooked street below. I sat at a corner table, carefully spreading jam onto toast, as if the simple act needed all my concentration. That was when I heard a voice from the next table. "You used too much jam," the woman said, not unkindly, but with the tone of someone who spoke her mind, whether you asked or not. I looked up. She was around my age, maybe a little older, 60, silver hair pulled back in a tidy bun, reading glasses perched low on her nose. Her eyes were sharp, almost amused. "Better than too little," I replied before I could stop myself. Her mouth curved into the suggestion of a smile. "Fair point." That was how I met Claudine Dupont. She was French, a retired lawyer from Lyon, traveling alone just as I was. She'd lost her husband years ago, and, as she explained with a shrug, she wasn't the kind to sit quietly in her apartment, waiting for visitors who never came. Something about her presence was magnetic. She didn't try to fill every silence, but when she spoke, she was crisp, confident. I found myself drawn to it, the way a thirsty plant leans toward sunlight. We walked together after breakfast, not far, just into the winding alleys, where cats stretched in doorways and bougainvillea spilled over whitewashed walls. She noticed details no one else seemed to. A cracked shutter painted lilac, a stray dog dozing beside a chipped statue. "You look around properly," I told her. She gave me a sidelong glance. "That is the only way to see." We sat later under a vine-covered terrace, sipping cold white wine. She asked about my life, and though I usually kept such things guarded, something about her frankness made me answer. "My children told me I was too old to travel," I admitted quietly. "They left me behind." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "They said that to you?" I nodded. She sipped her wine, no dramatic reaction, just a steady gaze. Then she set her glass down. "You are here. That means they were wrong." Her words landed harder than she knew. For years I had lived muted, reduced to the role of caretaker, dependable but unseen. And now here was a stranger, calling me something else entirely. Proof that being here was already enough. That night in my small room, I sat on the bed, humming an old tune I hadn't thought of in decades. I didn't feel young, but I felt something sharper, more awake. For the first time, I wondered if I had met someone who might remind me of who I used to be before life asked me to disappear. The third morning in Lisbon, I was pouring coffee when my phone lit up on the nightstand. At first, I thought it might be Sophie, my granddaughter. She was the only one I wanted to hear from. But the screen flashed a different name, David. I let it ring until it went silent. 30 seconds later, it buzzed again. This time, a voicemail. I didn't listen. I slipped the phone into my purse and walked down to meet Claudine. We took the tram together, the old yellow car clattering up steep hills, past laundry lines and tiled facades. Claudine pointed out a church, a bookshop, a hidden courtyard. I tried to focus, but the phone vibrated again, stubborn and insistent. Finally, at lunch, I glanced at the screen. 4 missed calls from David, 2 from Rachel, and a string of texts. "Mom, did you cancel our tickets? This isn't funny. Call me right now. We're at the airport, and they're saying the reservation is gone." "Are you serious? This is insane." I set the phone face down on the table. Claudine raised an eyebrow. "Bad news?" "Not bad," I said slowly. "Just expected." She didn't press. She had a gift for silence, a kind of respect most people didn't know how to give. That evening, I returned to my room. The phone was waiting like a restless animal. More messages. Rachel's words sharper than her brother's. "This is childish. You're making us look ridiculous. Grow up, Mom. We trusted you with the house, not to sabotage our trip." I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. Once upon a time, those words would have gutted me. Now they only confirmed what I already knew. They had stopped seeing me as a person long ago. I set the phone aside and opened the shutters. Outside, Lisbon glowed under street lamps. Somewhere below, a guitar strummed faintly. The next notification came differently. Not David, not Rachel, Sophie. Her message was short. "Grandma, are you safe? I saw a picture online of Lisbon. Is that you? You look beautiful." Something broke open in my chest. Beautiful. No one had called me that in years, not even politely. And she had recognized me in a photo I hadn't even realized someone had taken. Me walking past a tiled wall, scarf loose around my neck. I typed back with trembling fingers. "Yes, sweetheart. I'm safe. I'll call you soon. Thank you for noticing me." The reply came almost instantly. "Of course I notice you. You're my favorite person." Tears finally came then, not from anger or guilt, but from being seen. That night I folded the golden silk scarf I had bought earlier and placed it on the chair beside my bed, a promise to myself. I would no longer be invisible. Claudine was the one who suggested we leave Lisbon. "You've tasted the city," she said one morning over coffee, "but freedom is a train ride away." She held up 2 tickets she had already bought, her smile daring me to argue. Seville. We boarded the train that afternoon, the countryside sliding past in soft greens and golds. I watched vineyards blur into open fields, then villages with laundry flapping from balconies. Claudine buried herself in a novel, but I sat by the window, lost in a tug of memory. How many times had I told my children, "You go ahead, I'll stay home"? Birthdays I prepared, but never celebrated. Vacations I paid for but wasn't invited to. Dinners where I cooked, but sat in the corner when the laughter began. The rhythm of the train rocked me, and with it came a quiet rage I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years. Seville greeted us with heat that pressed down like a hand on the back of your neck. The air smelled of oranges and stone. We found a small hotel near the old quarter, its balcony overlooking narrow streets where strangers laughed late into the night. That evening we ate tapas under a striped awning. Claudine teased the waiter, and I found myself laughing too, the sound surprising me. I couldn't remember the last time laughter had come without effort. Later, back in the room, I made the mistake of checking my phone. 30 missed calls, 23 messages, most from David. The most recent voicemail began with silence, then his voice, strained and unfamiliar. "Mom, the kids are upset. They think something happened to you. Please, just call us, we're worried." I held the phone tightly, the words echoing in the quiet room. For years they had only worried about whether I cooked dinner, whether I kept the house ready, whether I showed up when convenient. And now, for the first time, they were worried about me. It should have softened me. It didn't. Instead, a calm settled in. If my absence was the only way to remind them I existed, then absence was what I would give. Claudine looked up from her book. "Bad news?" she asked. "Not bad," I said slowly. "Just late." She studied me, then nodded. "Do not rush back. Sometimes the only truth children understand is distance." I set the phone face down, picked up the golden scarf from the chair, and draped it across my shoulders. For the first time, it didn't feel like an accessory. It felt like armor. Seville unfolded like a song I had always known, but never dared to hum. The heat clung to my skin. The narrow streets pulsed with voices, and at night, music spilled from courtyards like secrets too powerful to keep. On our second evening, Claudine led me to a small restaurant tucked between faded stone walls. "No tourists," she whispered, as we stepped inside. "Only the real thing." The lights were low. A guitar began, slow and deliberate, followed by the sharp clap of hands. Then she entered, a flamenco dancer, older than me, her hair streaked with silver, her body wrapped in a red dress that shimmered under the dim bulbs. She was no longer young, but when her heels struck the wooden floor, the room trembled. Her face wasn't soft or apologetic. It burned with presence, fierce and unapologetic. Every stomp declared, "I am still here. I have always been here." I couldn't look away. My chest tightened, as if she was speaking directly to the part of me that had spent decades shrinking into the background. "She's older than both of us," Claudine whispered, eyes shining. "Yes," I breathed, "and stronger." Something inside me loosened. Age wasn't a prison. It was only a script others handed you, and I didn't have to read it anymore. The next afternoon, we walked the ancient stone walls of Seville. Claudine insisted on taking a photo. "Stand there," she said, pointing to the sunlit arch. I hesitated, then adjusted the golden scarf around my shoulders. The camera clicked, capturing me not as a caretaker, not as someone left behind, but as a woman standing tall, against centuries of stone. That night, I sent the picture to Sophie. Her reply came within minutes. "Grandma, I've never seen you look this happy. Dad doesn't know what to say, but I'm proud of you." I read her words twice, then again, my throat tight. She understood in ways her father and aunt never had. She saw me not as an obligation, but as a person. Meanwhile, Rachel's texts kept pouring in. You've made your point. Stop this and come home. This is embarrassing, Mom. People are asking questions. I didn't answer. For once, their urgency was theirs to carry, not mine. That night, I stood at the balcony, overlooking the glowing city. The golden scarf fluttered in the warm air. Somewhere below, a guitar played again, softer this time, almost like a lullaby. I thought of the dancer in red, stomping the floor with defiance. I thought of Sophie's quiet words, "I'm proud of you." For the first time in decades, I believed both could be true for me. I was not too old. I was finally seen. I returned to Phoenix on a quiet Sunday afternoon. The desert heat wrapped around me as I stepped out of the cab, suitcase rolling behind me. The house stood exactly as I had left it. Plants watered, porch swept, curtains drawn. Mrs. Howard had done her part, but the air inside felt different now, as though it was waiting for me instead of waiting on me. I unpacked slowly, savoring each gesture. My golden scarf, folded with care. The photo Claudine had taken on the walls of Seville. A small book of poems I had bought in Lisbon. Each piece whispered proof that I had lived more in a few weeks than in the last 2 decades combined. The first knock came not from David or Rachel, but from Sophie. She stepped inside with her backpack still slung over one shoulder and hugged me so tightly my ribs ached. "Grandma," she said, her voice muffled against my shoulder. "You look different, stronger." We sat at the kitchen table. She pulled a small notebook from her bag. On the first page, written in neat letters, were the words, "Things I will not inherit quietly." I read her list. The idea that women become invisible when they age. The habit of saying, "I'm fine," when I'm not. The silence that follows being told you're too much. I looked up at her, my chest heavy and light all at once. "You're going to be all right," I whispered. 2 days later, David and Rachel arrived together. They looked older than I remembered, weighed down by something they hadn't named before. David's voice cracked when he finally spoke. "Mom, we didn't see you. We stopped seeing you." Rachel shifted uncomfortably, then whispered, "We're sorry." I poured tea and set the cups in front of them. "If I'm in your lives, it won't be as your house sitter or your babysitter. It will be as myself. Take it or leave it." They both nodded, not quickly, not defensively, just quietly, as if they understood the terms were final. That evening, after they left, I sat on the porch. The sky blazed orange over Phoenix, the air thick with the smell of jasmine. I opened my journal and wrote at the top of a fresh page, "Things I know now. People only notice silence when it costs them something. Leaving is not the same as running away. You can begin again at 55. I am not too old. I was only too quiet." I set the pen down and closed the book. The golden scarf was draped across my shoulders, warm against the cooling desert air. I whispered into the twilight, "I no longer wait to be asked. I go." And for the first time in my life, the words felt like home.